So Jody, who are you before life forced you into survival mode? Tell us about your story.
Was I started really struggling and having what I now understand are symptoms, but at the time I didn't know what was going on. I knew that when I went out to try and run around the neighborhood with my girlfriends, that I felt terrible and I was dizzy and I had a hard time putting one foot in front of the other and focusing. And then those dizzy spells didn't go away, but I also started getting, it is time that you go back to the doctor again.
The doctor told you, listen, you have a tumor in your head, can't operate. What was going through your head at that time?
Imagine living your dream and then one day a life-changing tragedy. That's Jodie. She was faced with an inoperable brain tumor. Not even her doctors wanted to touch her.
When the battle gets really hard, for me personally, my battle got really hard, and I thought, I'm so fighting to do this. I can't keep fighting. But then I would see all the people who were fighting for me, who were out there helping my kids, taking care of my family, saying prayers on my behalf, doing all of these things so that my family could keep going. And I thought, no, I have to keep fighting. I have to keep fighting for them. Able to move my lips, close my lips, chew, swallow, and even, oh, and I really stretch, I can smile again.
Jodie is an award-winning author. She's a motivational speaker, a wife, and a mother of 4 children. She fought tirelessly to survive for her family, and now she's sharing her story and supporting others to navigate through life with inoperable brain tumors.
The mom that they knew that went into the hospital was not the same mom that came out.
I want to ask you a question, but it may come in a surprise to you. But who is Scott?
Who is what?
Scott.
Who is God?
Scott.
Scott.
Yeah.
Oh, who is Scott?
Yeah.
Scott is.
Jody, thanks for joining the Ivy Cancer podcast.
Thank you. It's an honor to be with you today.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
You're here to share your story with us. But before we enter in, I like to start my podcast with a word of prayer. And I would ask you if you want to do the honors for us to pray for us. If not, then I will go ahead and pray.
I would be happy to do the honors.
Okay.
Our dear Father in heaven, we are grateful for the opportunity we have to join with each other today, to be able to talk about those things that impact our life journeys, the important things that people should know so that they can be on the lookout, so that they can protect themselves and their families. We are grateful to be able to share some good with the world and share positive information and help others through their difficult health and cancer journeys. And bless us in this effort in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. So, Jody, who are you before life forced you into survival mode? Tell us about your story. Let us.
I was living what I would call my white picket fence life, where you're in your perfect house with your perfect spouse and your great kids, all of the things that I had envisioned when I was younger. I was doing, I was living it. I had 2 college degrees, was working in a job that I love, was married to my best friend, raising 4 kids. I really thought life couldn't get any better than what it was. And I guess you know that life can't stay that way, so maybe I should have seen it coming, but I didn't see it coming. I didn't know that a diagnosis was about to turn everything on its head.
Right. So you were diagnosed with brain tumor, right? Was there a time you were struggling physically or emotionally before your diagnosis?
Yes, and that's initially what led me to go to the doctor to find out what was wrong. Was I started really struggling and having what I now understand are symptoms, but at the time I didn't know what was going on. I knew that when I went out to try and run around the neighborhood with my girlfriends, that I felt terrible and I was dizzy and I had a hard time putting one foot in front of the other and focusing. And then those dizzy spells didn't go away, but I also started getting massive headaches. And I was never a headaches person. And so to me, that was unusual. So I went to the doctor and when they were bleh, excuse me, when they were dizzy spells, they said, "Oh, you probably have an inner ear infection." And when it was headaches, they said, "Oh, you're a mom of 4 kids and you're a wife and you're volunteering in your community. You're probably stressed. You've got stress migraines, take some painkillers and you'll feel better." So I had so many things that just seemed to be stacking on top of each other. I went back to the doctor again when I was having ringing in my ears and vertigo. And it wasn't until the point where I was really, really not functioning well. So much vertigo, so many headaches. I was not hardly able to put one foot in front of the other and walk, or even at my own house, that my husband finally said, "It is time that you go back to the doctor again. And this time, don't stop until we know what's going on."
How
And that
often,
was
how,
what made
how
me get an
often did
MRI.
you how often did you have the dizzy spells? Like,
I was having dizzy spells on a regular basis. Um, and especially anytime with movement, when movement was associated with it, when I was trying to run, when I was doing anything where there was very much movement involved, I could hardly focus and I could hardly stand still because I was so dizzy.
how many times you visit the doctor for this situation, this condition?
I
Four.
went to the doctor 4 times in 8 months before they finally said, "Okay, it's time to get an MRI." And it
What was
was
their
during the
first
process of
reply when you went for the first time? What was their reply?
their first reply was, "Oh, you probably have this inner ear infection, and it just will take a few months for you to get over it, and then you'll start feeling better, and you won't be dizzy anymore." And I was waiting and waiting for those few months to pass, and the few months passed, and it didn't get better. The dizzy just didn't go away, and by then I had started having the headaches as well.
You mentioned earache, and honestly, I get goosebumps, and I'm going to tell you why. I'm feeling a bit emotional right now because I told my mom the same thing. She had an earache that won't leave. They wanted to even do an operation on her ears. When at that time, her cancer was spreading. No thorough checks, nothing to just speculate you have an earache. So they told you it probably be an earache that you're struggling with. Because what they said that the earache trouble with dizziness. So maybe
Mhm.
that's the reason why they associate it with that.
Yes, because the inner ear is where your balance
Right.
um, mechanism is located, and it's when your inner ear isn't working well that you have dizzy spells and you struggle with your balance. And so, when you're having earaches, when you're having an inner ear infection, they think that's what they think. They think, "Oh, it's probably an infection, it's probably an earache." They don't necessarily jump to the fact that it's a tumor. But the reality is, tumors and cancers can also very much impact that same area and be creating the dizzy spells.
So after the fourth time, they decide, you know what, let's do something. What was their the step that they took?
Well, they only took the steps, interestingly, because we insisted on it. I said, "It is time. We have to figure this out." So the steps were, first of all, we did a family history and then they did blood work. And then they called me back and said, "Oh, congratulations, your blood work came back fine. You're good." And I said, "I am not good.
Yes,
We have to
definitely.
keep looking for the answer." And so I told the person who was calling me on the phone, "Go ask the doctor what is the next step." And the next step was then to get an MRI of my brain.
I, I was watching an interview with you some time ago, and you mentioned that your husband had a friend that recommend a doctor. Can you
Mhm.
walk us through that so that my listeners could understand?
Well, when we found out that I had a tumor, the first thing they did was send me to a send me to a neurosurgeon. I'm struggling with my words today, excuse me.
That's fine.
So I got diagnosed on a Friday afternoon, and then I got a call from the doctor that said, I've called the neurosurgeon. Because of your situation, he has cleared his schedule and he will see you at 8 a.m. on Monday. And this was Friday afternoon of spring break, Easter weekend. And I said, and I in my mind, I thought, because of my situation, I didn't know what my situation was. So the doctor already knew that it was more serious than what I knew. Well, when I went with my husband into that doctor on Monday, he gave us a diagnosis that no one ever wants to hear, which is that I had an inoperable brain tumor wrapped around my brainstem.
So meaning you can't do no operation.
You can't do surgery.
Right.
And we walked out of that office and had a scene similar to what you see in the movies, where a husband and wife are in the hospital and they throw their arms around each other and they're sobbing. And I thought, this is it. What do we do? What do you do when you have an inoperable diagnosis? And I can now look back on that and realize it was a blessing, because had he operated on me, I would not be here today.
Why
I
did you
was
say
inoperable to him. And sadly, I was also inoperable to the enther healthcare system that he worked for. But there was a person who I was operable for. And it was a matter of finding that one right person who was a specialist who could look at my MRI and my scans. And he honestly just said, I think I can do this. And he turned my inoperable diagnosis into an operable diagnosis.
so the doctor told you, listen, you have a tumor in your head, can't operate on you. What was going through your head at that time, apart from, the distress? Like, what was really going through your head?
I was thinking about my four little kids at home. How do you go home and tell four littles that mommy is so sick that she might not survive? Um, it was devastating. And I was also realizing I was already struggling so much physically. I couldn't walk down the hall in my house. I was having to hold on to the banister just to get to my bedroom or to get to the kitchen. And I thought, if I'm this bad now, what is my future going to look like? So all of these thoughts were running through my head, as the doctor was saying things like, in the brain, it's all about location, location, location. And I'm very sorry to say, Mrs. Brown, but your tumor is in a very bad location. And then when my husband was begging him for answers and saying, okay, well, if we can't operate, what can we do? And asking all of these questions as to what the next steps are. And he just literally said, I'm sorry, but I wouldn't touch her with a 10-foot pole. It was clearly that my situation was beyond the scope of what he could do. And all of the thoughts in my head just turned to, how much worse am I going to get? And what are we going to tell the kids? How are my kids going to handle this? And they were little. And I was afraid that I was going to die and my kids weren't even going to remember me, because my youngest was not even 2 years old. So it was, to receive that kind of information and that kind of diagnosis, it just vastly shortened my vision of my life that went from here to here in just a matter of seconds.
Was it cancerous?
Well, that's the interesting thing. They didn't know if it was cancerous until we were doing the surgery. They cut out as much of the tumor as they could. The part, obviously, they can't touch the brain stem, so they cut out as much as they could. And then they sent it off to pathology. And when they got the pathology back, it was not cancerous. The problem more was the location, which was between the end of my ear canal and wrapped around my brainstem. And because of that, it was already pushing on all of my nerves. It was damaging the areas around my brainstem. My face was paralyzed in the process of taking it out. I lost my hearing in my right ear. And so for me, the bigger problem was the location of the tumor and that they were not able to get it all. So I still have some tumor that is there that continues to press on my nerves and cause issues, but they can't get it out because of the location.
How do you get to come in contact with this doctor? that do the operation?
I came in contact with the doctor that did the operation because my husband, as word started to get out that I had a brain tumor, as you can imagine, bad news spreads fast. It spreads like wildfire.
Right.
And so word started to get out, and someone at my husband's work came up to him and said, "Listen, I heard the wife about, or I heard the news about your wife, and I just wanted to tell you, I have this friend who's a neurosurgeon, and I talked to him, and he said if you want, he'd be willing to see your wife for an appointment." And so my husband agreed, and we took the appointment and we went to go see him 2 days later. So she invited my husband to go to the doctor on Wednesday, and we showed up at the doctor's office on Friday. And then we got there and found out that this same specialist had a 3 to 5 month wait to be seen for a single appointment. But
Wow.
because his friend called, he was able to get us in 2 days later on his lunch break, which turned out to be a miracle that helped save my life.
Wow. Talk about contacts. Before we get deeper into your story, I want to understand more about Jody. And earlier in my introduction, I make reference to anti-fragility expert. What is that?
Good question. Everyone in this day and age talks about resilience and how we all need to be resilient. Well, resilient means that you go through something difficult and then you go back to as good as you were before. You rebuild to where you were before. So you started here and then maybe life took you down to here because you had a struggle and you want to get back up to here. Anti-fragility is the concept that when you have the right systems in place, you can actually get better and grow stronger through your mistakes, volatilities, weakness, the things that you struggle with. So rather than just getting as good as you were before, it helps you get better, learn more, and thrive through the difficulties that you're having. And I became an expert in that mostly from life experience, but when I was first introduced to the concept was at a time where I was very much in my recovery mode. I was trying to rebuild my life because my body and my brain were vastly changed and I couldn't do many of the things I had been able to do before. And I didn't want to have gone through everything I went through only to go back to where I was. So I loved this idea that we could become better, stronger, more capable because of the challenges that we go through. So I started studying the principles of anti-fragility. I started doing the research and reading all of the content and materials so that I could learn how to make myself anti-fragile. And then I started applying it to my family. And then I started helping people apply it to their businesses and how you can get better and stronger through the things that challenge you.
Right. You're also an author, and
Yes.
you are not just an author, but an award winning. Can you walk us through that?
Well, interestingly, my best selling and the book that has gotten the most awards is my memoir. It's my story of my fight for life with the brain tumor. And it's written in such a way that you are sitting in the seat next to me, experiencing it with me as we go. Um, and after I survived, I have people who started coming to ask my story. And as they heard me talk about my situation and my story and how we survived that difficult situation, everyone said, "Oh my gosh, have you written a book? Have you written a book? You've got to write a book." And so I realized if for no other reason than just for my kids to have the history of their mom, that I
Mhm.
needed to write my journey down. And it took a long time. It was the hard kind of therapy. Like every time I'd sit down to write,
Mhm.
it was rehashing all of these struggles that I'd had. So it was hard to sit down and focus on that. But little by little, I did it. I went through the whole process. I finished the book, and eventually it was able to be published. And it's won 4 or 5 awards, plus been a
Oh,
bestseller multiple times, and has been a great blessing in my life. Has opened doors for me, and also blessed many others' lives. It now has close to 1,000 reviews on Amazon, and it's been the means of helping other people get through their struggles. Turns out it wasn't just for me, wasn't just for my family. It was to help and bless people in the world as well.
We're going to ask you about the link to get to that, so I could place it in the description so people can get it. And even myself, I'm getting into the habit of reading. I have a few book reading right now as well. So yeah, I could get one as well. So I'm going to ask you for that
Yes,
link.
that would be wonderful. And it's also available on Audible. So for those who prefer to listen,
Yeah.
that's there as well, Kindle and paperback, all the ways. But
Okay.
I think there's power in people sharing their stories because
Definitely, I believe that.
fiction is wonderful, and we all love to get lost in a fictional story or in a movie or in a book. But when you know that someone has actually gone through something and survived the impossible, it gives you hope, faith, and strength to think that maybe I can do this in my story as well.
Jody, how long ago were you diagnosed?
Oh my gosh, it's been so long. 16 and a half years ago was when I was initially diagnosed. And I believed when I went into it that I had to hold on to the hope that I was going to come out of this alive, that I was going to survive. But I honestly believed I was going to go back to that white picket fence life. I thought I was going to go back to my normal. And now 16 and a half years and 26 surgeries later, I realize this is my new normal. Life is not
26.
going back to the way. 26.
26 surgery.
26 surgeries.
Whoa. Like 2-6.
26. My most recent one was just a couple of months ago. So the brain tumor caused all kinds of problems. And because of the location, as I mentioned, it was very difficult to get to. So when I went into the hospital, they hoped I would have one surgery and be in the hospital for 5 days. I ended up having three craniotomies. So three times they cut open my brain just in that first hospital stay. And then because of all of the complications, the facial paralysis, the losing the hearing in my ear, I had a spinal fluid leak that created three additional surgeries. Because my face was paralyzed, I've had all sorts of problems and I've had more than a dozen surgeries to try and help me process food and fluids in my mouth again. Uh, I'm able to move some parts of my face. You can see that I can talk and I can move my lips. That's because this is my thigh muscle. So they took a nerve from my leg and a muscle from my thigh and they implanted it into my face because I was unable to use my facial muscles. And so I couldn't chew properly. I couldn't hold food in my mouth. I couldn't swallow. And so, in order to restore the functionality, we transplanted one of my muscles from my leg into my cheek. And that's why I'm able to move my lips, close my lips, chew, swallow, and even, oh, and I really stretch. I can smile again.
Yeah, you can smile again. Whoa. That's a lot, Jody. That's a lot.
It's a lot and it's heavy. And people say, I'm so glad that you overcame your brain tumor. And I think overcome is not the right word because this journey is going to last for the rest of my life. I think a better term for it in my case is conquer, because I'm choosing to conquer even though I can't fully overcome it. Conquering means you're winning the battle. And mine is not a fight that's ever going to be over, but it is one that I can still choose to win. And so I'm definitely trying to conquer, but it's a fight I will be fighting for the rest of my life.
How does this
But I'm grateful to be here to fight that fight.
definitely? Life is worth more than anything else. Definitely.
Yes.
How does this impact your mental health?
Oh, well, okay, let's talk about that. So I wrote my first book, which was about the brain tumor story. My subsequent books, two of my other books have been on a topic we don't often like to talk about, which is depression. And the greatest lesson that I learned during my journey was that within the word depression are these two other words: press on.
That's good. Press on.
Press on. And when you are going through mental health struggles, when you are deep in the valley of depression, that is what you have to do. You have to press on. You have to keep putting one foot in front of the other. And when I was still a very, very sick person, when I came out of the hospital, my life was totally changed. I had to learn how to do things all over again, and I wasn't able to eat. My taste buds were even paralyzed, and so I couldn't even taste food. And I was down to 89 pounds. I barely had any strength. I couldn't walk. I couldn't do so many of the things that I could do before. Um, and the chemicals in my brain, when they cut open my brain numerous times for surgeries, it that between the tumor and the surgeries, it changed my personality. So I went from being a conquer the world, get her done girl to being in bed and to being nervous and to being anxious and sick and not able to do things for myself. And that took me down a very dark, hard mental health path where I was not doing well, not for days at a time, but for months at a time. Um, when you can't get out of bed, it's very hard to stay positive. It's very hard to know why you're still on this earth when you can't take care of yourself and you can't take care of anyone else. So it was a real challenge. And as I finally started to get better, again, not days, weeks, or months, but years into my journey, I realized there were tools that could help other people when they were in their own battles with depression. And that's what caused me to write not one, but two books on depression, which is a topic I never wanted to write a book on, never in my life would have anticipated. But I felt like a higher power, that God was calling me to do it so that I could be a help to other people.
Your husband, he is, and still is in the fight with you. How does this affect or how does this impact your marriage?
Oh, we have had some rough times because it did have such an impact on not just my physical body, but my mental health, my personality. And so he married the conquer the world girl that I was telling you about, who graduated from college in 3 years because four was just going to take too long. And so I just put more on my plate and worked harder. And that was how I've been able to live my life. And so coming out of the hospital and being a very sick person, not able to take care of myself or our kids, it was very, very challenging. And I feel so blessed that my husband stuck with me through the times where I was not good, because I know many people whose relationships do not make it through some of those hard times. But he always had the faith and the belief that we're in this together and that he was going to stay by me, that God is part of our relationship, and that we made a covenant not just to each other, but also to God, that we were going to, stay together come what may. And it's interesting because when you say I do, you don't really know what you're saying yes to. You don't know what is going to come. You don't know the battles that have yet to unfold. And we have definitely had our challenges, but my husband is a rock. He is the rock that steadies our family. And my journey has been more like this. I've been more like the waves rolling on the ocean, and he's that steady rock that the waves can roll, but that rock just stays firm. And that is how we've been able to make it through, is that he has been the steadying force for our family. And I'm so, so grateful. But it has not come without hard work. And we've had to dedicate and rededicate ourselves to each other over and over and over again. Many times he's been my caregiver. We've also gone to therapy to learn how to deal with the new dynamics of our relationship. So it has not been an easy thing, but honestly, I give most of the credit to him for sticking it out. Many people would not have stuck it out, and I am so blessed and grateful that he chose to stay.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned God several times in this interview. You're a strong believer in Christ.
I am.
I appreciate that, man. Sometimes we trod along life road and we tend to forget who is the creator in our life, who is the sustainer in our life. Without God, we can't do anything. And if you guys didn't have God in your marriage, your husband probably would have gone. But
Yeah,
thanks
and
be
I
to
would have
God,
been left to try to figure out life on my own, which would I do not even know how I would have done it because I just didn't have the ability and the capacity to at the time. But we believe that marriage and family is not even just for this life, but in our faith, we believe that it's forever, that we will still get to be able to carry on that association even in the next life. Um, and we're firm believers in Christ and that he suffered all things on our behalf and understands all things. And because of that, my prayers to God when I was going through the hardest parts of my journey, I knew that he could understand because he took on everything so that he could help succor us and he could help us get through our difficulties and infirmities. And that firm faith in in God, in a higher power, has kept us anchored when life got to be really, really hard and crazy, and keeps me anchored to this day. I still, to this day, start out every day with prayers to heaven and gratitude for my life that it's been preserved.
life is a blessing. Sometimes the challenges is heavy, but we have to ask God for the strength. What is one thing that you wish you knew before you're diagnosed?
It's hard to think about that now because we were so naive going in. And in many ways, I understand why they say that ignorance is bliss. Because if I had known how hard it was going to be, if I had known what I know now, I don't know if I would have had the strength to start the battle. I may have given up before giving it a real try because it has been such a tough journey. So I don't know that I wished I had known anything differently because all of it impacted what happened to me and the things that I learned and the person that I've become. But if I give advice to someone who is going through something major, a health crisis or a struggle, what I tell them now is a lesson that was hard for me to learn, but was critical in my survival, which is that we have to advocate for ourselves. You have to be the one to insist on getting the additional tests, to tell the doctor, no, something is wrong, and I need you to keep looking. You need to speak up for yourself because they may be trying their hardest, but they're still human too, and they don't know what's going on inside your body. So it took me a long time to figure out that the doctors have to listen to me. I
Right.
was just listening to and doing everything that they told me to do, that every person who walked into my hospital room told me to do, I was doing, and I was still losing the battle for my life. I was still dying. And in the meantime, I felt like a pincushion and a dummy that they were testing everything on. And it took a long time before I realized I had to speak up and I could use my voice and advocate for myself. My family had always been advocating for me, but when I finally started to use my own voice and express what I did and didn't want the doctors to do, and even say, I'm sorry, but I don't want that nurse ever to walk back in my room again. Like that person was not good in here and they did not help me. Don't let that person in. That's something I never would have done in the early days of my diagnosis. I would have just had deference, like, oh, thank you, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. But I now tell people they have to advocate for themselves, they have to listen to their bodies, and they have to speak up on their own behalf. So I learned it the hard way, but I now encourage other people to use that from the start so that they can have better outcomes.
Good advice. You mentioned your doctor. Tell me one thing that your doctor didn't tell you that you wish they did.
Oh boy. I feel like they didn't tell me how changed my life was going to be. They released me from the hospital, and I fully believed that I was going to be healthy and I was going to go home and I was going to go back to normal. And no one told me, no one warned me that that it was a game changer, that my whole life was different. They didn't tell me how to live this new life. It was things like, well, come back and we'll check on your staples and we'll check on your stitches. And it was that kind of suggestions and advice after having the surgeries, that no one told me how to go and start to live life in a very different body than I ever had before.
Did
And
you have
there was
this?
no one to navigate that path with me. I felt like I was completely alone. A neurosurgeon was there to save me and take out the mass and the tumor, but no one taught me or told me or warned me that my life was totally different. And they didn't tell me what to expect, how it was going to be. Um, I felt like I was very much alone in that journey, and that was tough.
When did you start experiencing facial paralysis?
So when the on the very first surgery in the hospital, when they removed the tumor, I woke up from surgery with my face paralyzed. And in the process of removing the tumor, some of my facial nerves, nerves 5, 7, and 8, were damaged, and it paralyzed my face. So my family knew before I did, because the doctor told him when I was still under anesthesia. He told him that it looked like I had some weakness on my right side. He believed at that time that it was temporary. He thought that the damage to the nerves were that it was going to recover and that I would regain the movement in my face within a few weeks. Well, I was in the hospital and in the ICU for 5 weeks. And not only did I not get better, they were alarmed at the fact that I hadn't made any improvement. And so by the time I left the hospital, obviously, they said it's no longer going to be weeks. It could be months. It could even be up to a year. At the time, I thought, a year? A year of facial paralysis? Oh, I couldn't close my eye at all. I couldn't blink. I don't produce tears. I was struggling with chewing and keeping food and fluids in my mouth. And so a year felt like a long time. And now, 16 years in, it's been a long journey, but I'm still grateful. I'm still grateful for it.
So is there no turning back then? That's how your face is going to be from now. Will it get
Well, it's been the cause of many of the surgeries to improve the functionality, but it's never going to get better on its own. And so um, over time, I lose more and more of the muscles have lost their tone. And so you can't see this now because some of the surgeries have helped with it, but the mass, what had been the muscles, they were no longer able to work. And so what had been, when you think of you exercise to strengthen your muscles and so that they stay firm. And when they don't, they atrophy and they literally started to slide off my face and my lips, like everything just started to pull down and slide off my face. And so the surgeries that I've had, several of them have been to go in and fix some of these problems. So they put the muscle in my cheek. I've had multiple surgeries to deal with my eye, which doesn't close on its own. I've had a mechanical device that allows me to blink my eye. It works like it forces it closed when I can't close it on my own. Um, but that device broke and it started digging into my bone and causing problems. And so they took it out, and the only solution they had was to sew my eye closed. So that is hopefully temporary, but I'm going to be dealing with the effects of the paralysis for the rest of my life.
You had 26 surgeries. What's that hospital visit is like? Like I can imagine it's countless.
I would say I have a lot of different doctors, a lot of different surgeons. I've been to a lot of different hospitals on the West Coast, on the East Coast, from New York to California. I have doctors all over the place. I'm so grateful that I have good, caring surgeons that take care of me. Um, I don't love hospitals. It's hard. It's hard to heal in hospitals. Um, but what I can say is I have learned, because I've done this so many times, I have learned what I need to do to take care of myself so that I can come out of the hospital and go home and actually start getting better. I do a lot of preparation before I have surgeries. I put on a little bit of weight because I know I'm going to lose some weight. I exercise a ton so I can be as healthy as possible. I I pack, protein drinks and soft foods so that I can come out and start a recovery as well as I can, because that time in the hospital is difficult, but even more than physically, it will take me down mentally if I am not prepared for what is to come, because there's always more to deal with when you have the surgeries than you anticipate that there is going to. Nothing ever goes exactly the way that you want it. And so I've had to learn to prepare myself, how to give myself grace and give myself TLC and take time to recover so that I don't come out of it in a worse mental place than I went in.
What was the transition like for your kids?
Oh, for my kids, you know, for some of my kids, this is all they've ever known. For my youngest, this is all he can remember. He doesn't have any memories of his mom before, which breaks my heart. In fact, he sees pictures and he's had to ask, like, wait, is that mom? Because there was a point in time where he didn't recognize the before version of me because it wasn't a version he remembered or knew. Um, so my youngest didn't doesn't know anything else in his life. It's all he's known his whole life. Uh, so it really depended on where my kids were at the stage that I got sick. My oldest two had enough comprehension of what was going on. They knew that I was fortunate that I survived, and but they've had to learn. All of us have had to learn how to navigate a new life, because the mom that they knew that went into the hospital was not the same mom that came out. I just didn't have the capabilities. I didn't have the functionality anymore. I couldn't do the things. I couldn't run around with them and play with them. Like, they were helping take care of me, and they became my little caregivers. And so the thing that I would say has been good is they have learned enormous amounts of compassion and care. They know how to help take care of other people. They know how to see someone else who is suffering and to step in, even if that's just with a kind word. I mean, they were in elementary school and they would come home and say, Mom, I saw a kid on the playground who was sitting there by himself and he was having a hard time. And I went and sat down and talked to him and asked him if I could help.
Listen,
Those are things they learned because they saw their mom going through hard things.
right.
So my kids have become my heroes because they have learned the hard way, that now that has softened their hearts. So the hard things we went through have made them more compassionate and more giving and caring.
The first time I came across your video, and I I was trying to figure out what exactly happened. So I was looking
Mhm.
to the comment section, and I've seen some good comments and I also seen some bad comments. What was it like for you when you first done your operation and went into the public?
That was hard. When I was in the hospital, everyone around me treated me like I was normal. Like, it was normal to have your head shaved and your face not work, and spinal fluid. Like, everyone treated me like there was nothing wrong with me. Um, and granted, that was their job to come in and treat me and care for me, but it did not prepare me for the fact that when I got out of the hospital, people did not know how to react to me. They did not treat me normally. They looked at me and did a double take. And then sometimes they would immediately look away so that they didn't have to meet my eyes. They would shush their little kids, like, don't say anything, don't say anything. And I wore an eye patch for a couple of years, and my face wasn't working. And some people were incredibly cruel. And more often than not, it was the adults that were cruel, not the kids. The kids were curious.
Yeah.
The kids just wanted to understand. And when they could understand, if the parents allowed them to ask and I was able to just talk to them and explain,
Yeah.
it satisfied their curiosity. And they're like, oh, well, that makes sense. I understand. And they were willing to accept. It was some of the adults who were the cruelest, who were the meanest, who laughed, who poked fun, who, as I struggled to keep food and fluids in my mouth and was constantly trying to wipe my face, that they literally pointed and laughed. And that was hard because I wasn't prepared. I was I felt like I should have been a conqueror for, coming out and having survived. I didn't think I would be ridiculed and that I would be a comic figure. I thought, no, I'm a survivor. I've gotten through the hardest of things. Why in the world is someone making fun of me? I wasn't prepared for it. And at the time, I was in such a weakened physical state and mental state that I didn't know how to react. I've since come up with all sorts of things, but that didn't happen until after the ridicule started. So it was hard to learn how to go back out into the world and be okay to stand up straight and to own the fact that, yeah, I don't look the same as everyone else does. But you know what? Now I see it as a superpower because people are going to remember me. And
Right.
I get to choose, are they going to remember me for something negative because of something I did, or are they going to remember me for something positive? Because I came up and talked to them, I left them with something inspiring, and now I realize that that's a gift, but it did not always feel like a gift. For a while, it felt like a curse.
Yeah. What one thing you would change now about your life that people wouldn't expect?
What would I change?
Yeah. That people wouldn't expect.
Hmm. I don't know if I would say that I want to change anything because it's the experiences that I've gone through that have brought me here. I wouldn't have the platform. I wouldn't have people who have me come into their organizations to speak and to train. And I wouldn't have people who follow me online and come to me for advice and look to me for inspiration. I wouldn't have written 5 books. I wouldn't have done these things had I not gone through the difficulties that I've gone through. So I can't say that I would change anything. Um, I mean, there are days where I wish I felt better. There were days where I wish I didn't have so many side effects. I still get a lot of headaches. I have chronic migraines now. Um, that would be nice to sometimes have a break from those. But those experiences have also made me more compassionate and me want to help other people and reach out to those who are struggling. So as much as it would be nice sometimes to wave a magic wand and have everything better, I don't think that I really would want to do that. I don't think I'd really want to change anything because it's made me who I am today.
The headache is caused by the piece of tumor that's left back, that's pressing on your nerves. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. It's just kind of difficult. I wish that tumor could just shrink because it would make your life more easier.
It might. The doctors wonder at this point in time if the nerve damage is done, that even if the removal of the tumor wouldn't make much difference at this point, because the nerves that have been damaged, the damage is done and it can't really reverse things. So it would be wonderful if life were easier, but I also know a lot of people whose lives are harder, and I wouldn't ever say that I've been through the hardest of things. I know many people who have been through just as hard or more challenging through their own journeys. So I try to stay grateful, to remember that I have God and I have a wonderful family, And that helps me focus on the right things.
What was the size of your tumor?
Um, it wasn't even that big because the space where it was located between the end of my ear canal, so there's a bone, and then my brainstem. So the space is only an inch. So the tumor was not that big. It's just that it was taking up all of the space that was there, so that
Uh,
it was pressing on the nerves and pressing on the brainstem. And that's why it was so life-threatening. It was not because of the size, it was because of the location. It was literally, they say, between a rock and a hard place. Mine was between a bone and a bad place, the brainstem. So there was just nowhere else for it to go. And that's why it pressed on all of my nerves, smashed the nerves, and caused all of the damage.
okay.
And would have killed me had they not taken out as much as they were able to.
Oh, your story is a lot, man.
But it didn't kill me. And I am here and I'm living my best life.
What don't
And
kill
even
you
on the
make you
hard
stronger?
days, it's a good day.
What don't kill you make you stronger, right?
That's right.
If you could go back in time and give yourself an advice at the start of of this journey, what would that advice be?
I think I would tell me to advocate for myself more, to stand up for myself, not to take everything that people said at face value. Um, and then the other thing I would say is to be willing to give me the tender, loving care that I would give as if I were giving advice or care to someone else. But sometimes it's hard to do that for yourself. Sometimes I so desperately wanted to be back up and on my feet, that I was pushing myself too hard. Whereas what I really needed was time and healing and rest, and then pushing yourself in the right ways. And so that's something I've learned over the years, but it was not something I knew going in. All of this, I had always functioned in a very healthy body and been able to do whatever I wanted to physically. And to deal with that was difficult. So I wish I had known how to deal with that a little bit better. It would have saved me, probably would have gained me some time back where I was feeling better because I'd taken care of myself more.
Your husband was a strong support system, your kids, your family. But what was your circle like? What was the support from your circle?
My circle was unbelievable. And in my book, The Sun Still Shines, I refer to my community and my network as my pack of angels. Uh, Animals run in packs, they run in packs for sociality, for protection, to help each other. They take care of the weak ones, they take care of the old ones. And that's how I felt. I became the weak one, and my community, my pack, I call them my pack of angels. My pack of angels stepped in and they took care of the things I couldn't take care of. And so they took care of my family, they took my kids to appointments, they brought in meals. Um, they stepped in and helped so that my husband could be at the hospital or he could be at work and be earning money, and so we could have insurance. And so all of these other people came in and helped. And that is one of the things that I think is critical now, is we need to have people who are going to be there to support us, which means we need to be there to support them as well. Because if you can have people who are there to support you, I can tell you for sure that when the battle gets really hard, for me personally, when my battle got really hard and I thought, I just don't have the strength to do this. I can't keep fighting anymore. But then I would think of all the people who were fighting for me, who were out there helping my kids, taking care of my family, saying prayers on my behalf, doing all of these things so that my family could keep going. And I thought, no, I have to keep fighting. I have to keep fighting for them, even if I'm no longer fighting for me. When I got to a point where I would have been at peace if I had left this earth, because my physical body was just so depleted, I didn't think I could do it anymore.
Mhm.
But that was when the instinct kicked in that I needed to keep fighting for everyone else in my life.
It's not very often you hear people giving their story, have the support of their friends. And that's the reason why I ask you. And it's good to know that you had the support system, because support helps in times like this, so it's good to know. I want to ask you a question, but it may come in a surprise to you. But who is Cut?
Who is what?
Scott.
Who is God?
Scott.
Scott.
Yeah.
Oh, who is Scott?
Yeah.
Scott is my little brother who died 2.5 years ago of an undiagnosed case of pancreatitis. We didn't know he was sick until it was too late. And by the time he went into the hospital, he had 6 days to live, and there was nothing that anyone could do. So Scott is Scott is one of my angels now, but he's my little brother who I miss terribly.
My condolences to you.
Thank you.
Jody, your story will reach the world and is a very strong story, and you're a very strong woman. You have been through a lot, and you're still going through a lot. And my prayers are with you and your families.
Thank you.
We have a closing tradition where the guests would leave an encouraging word for the next guest coming up. And the guest that leave this encouraging word for you is Dr. Claudia Jones. And I quote, "You have come this far by faith and the grace of God which sustain you. While you encourage or speak into the lives of others, you may sometimes feel strained, but in exchange, others heal. Today, I want you to be conscious of the fact that each moment your story is told, the presence of total healing invades, dictates, echoes by challenges were never meant for your soul. In each new day, let your heart be filled with the mission and overcome, seeing obstacles as beautiful opportunities. Identify and execute by your drive to manifest and grow. You are wired for greatness, wrapped within the spirit of excellence. You are stronger than the strength and showcase that you showcase. Every scar perceived as a mark which activates success. You are intentional, story written by God on the page of life. As He continue to write, be not anxious, for the Lord shall preserve thee. His glory will be the crown of your life. Keep walking into the rich abundance provided to you each time you share your story. And remember, the will of God will never take you where the grace of God will not protect you.
Beautiful.
It seems
Thank
as
you.
if she knew what was coming on. This is just for you, Jody.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining the Ivy Cancer podcast. I appreciate it.
It's been my privilege. Thank you.
Until my regular listeners, if this story impacts you, let me know in the comment section what you think and leave a like. Until next time, stay safe, stay blessed, and eat healthy.